you wanna erase this live and then restart?
I mean, I can edit it once it's over.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
all right, so we
Let's
talked
roll.
about me the entire time last time. First off, how the hell did I talk for an hour and a half straight just about me? I did not think that was gonna happen. But
Dude.
now it's your turn. Hang on, let me buckle up real quick.
Well, I'm not gonna get into the I guess meat and potatoes. But I'm gonna touch on a few things that you know my childhood or my views on growing up have changed over the years. um, of course, whenever I was growing up, I thought I had an awesome childhood. You know, the normal family that had strange cousins and the aunts and uncles that didn't get along and all this stuff. I'll back it up. I was pretty much lived with my mom and sister. My parents divorced when I was one, so I've never really known a family that is together,
Yeah.
or I guess, you know, the traditional like mom and dad. So that was like an interesting concept, like growing up and like going to other people's houses and like seeing like both parents be there. It was like foreign to me,
Yeah.
Um, so we saw my dad every other weekend. And when I was really young, I did not like going over there. I was a big mama's boy because mama was the homie. She protected us, she was awesome. And kind of like as I grew up, my dad like did not like the way that I was being raised, and like he let us know. So there was always like a feud between like my mom and dad, and like it put us in the middle. But of course, like that was no different than what we had always known. So it was like, oh, yep, they're just going at it again. Let's see. I pretty much was, I wouldn't say raised in the church, but we went to church every Sunday, Catholic church. My aunt lived right across the road from one. And we would all go there on Sundays, and the kids would go to Bible study, and then we'd go to church, and then we'd have brunch afterwards. Like, you know, a good old family Sunday church. And I feel like there was like a lot of pressure with the church. I don't know how much experience you have with like the church as a kid or like religion.
I was definitely like raised Christian.
Yeah.
I was always in church. I remember I used to do. I won't get into that, but I was actually a youth leader for a church when I was a senior in high school. I don't subscribe to like a monotheistic religion now. Right now I just mostly Buddhist and agnostic, but I grew up with that looming kind of like, oh, I believe in this like whatever that word is, omnipotent. Probably said that wrong, but presence of like this just an almighty being, and then that just kind of faded away real quick.
Yeah. So it was a kind of like a big deal. So like my mom, she had, I wish I could talk to her now. She has since passed away in 2016. So like I wish I could talk to her about all these things that I'm like discovering now in my late 20s, and like specifically like spiritual and religious views, because so she was like an avid churchgoer. I mean, she was for a time, and like when we were growing up, like she was in the choir, like, you know, I remember her telling me like before, I think it was before like the 2012 when the world was supposed to end. She was like, "All I got to say is like you better get right with God" or something like that. It's always stuck in my head, and I don't know why, but so I'd like to talk to her now about it. I'm getting off subject here, but it was used a lot in my family as a huge fear tactic. You know,
Oh shit.
my mom said she was gonna like call the devil if I was being bad, and I would like go to hell. Like, just
I'm gonna
as
put a
like
curse on you, boy.
yeah, like little punishment, you know. So that led me, as a little kid, I could barely sleep at night if there was like a car driving outside the house, like headlights, because I thought it was like this tour bus that was gonna like take me to hell because I was being a shithead that day. Like, and so anyway, right around that time, ended up going to a Catholic school. It just fell into place, of course, and that was probably the time when I first like had my little bouts with like a depression state, and I was about 9, and I very much, looking back, like this is the time when it started. I developed an eating disorder. I'm like a huge binge eater, which I'm still working on today. It's like one of the biggest personal issues that I've been trying to crack, and it's a tough one, man. Like it's so weird, eating disorders, and I never used to really put a lot of thought into all of these like disorders and kind of diagnoses and stuff like that you see today. I actually had a friend that asked me not long ago. He was like, "I don't understand like why all today, they're promoting like obesity and saying that it's okay and all that stuff." And I kind of gave him like a different point of view, and I was like, it's not so much that they're promoting it, it's that at the end of the day, you know, we need to be comfortable in our body, because like, dude, I swear for like 20 years, and I still do it today, like sucked in my stomach, because my dad, like once I started gaining weight as a kid, would make sure that I knew that I was gaining weight and overweight. And it was like those comments like stick with you. And especially like going to the military, where it's like body perfection is like so, you know, picked on, or not picked on, but like they promote it so much, and like the weigh-ins and stuff like that. And like I'm in one of the best shapes in my life, and I'm pushing my max weight in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And it's like
No, I totally know what you mean though, because I struggle with body dysmorphia as well.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was short and fat as a kid. I only got tall like probably like the middle of middle school, and those little comments. Like I remember I went outside once with a shirt off, and my neighbor. I mean, this is just like an adult, like little bit humorous thing that my neighbor said to my dad. And he's like, "Everett saw you out front earlier. He says your root beer belly's coming in."
Dude, like it embarrasses you to the core.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I know exactly when I went outside. Like, here I am, like 15 years later.
Yeah. And
almost 20 years later, and I still
so
that.
It really had a lot of effects on me, like going kind of like through the years, starting from around the time when I was 9. So going on from there, we kind of went through. I went there for 3 years, and then I was kind of jumped back into the public school, back with my other friends, and that was like a big thing. And that was the time when I was starting to like shoot up and get taller and thin out, and girls were becoming the topic, and the confidence really grew a lot. And there was still like not a true established relationship with my dad. Um, I was never really the son that he wanted, you know.
Oh.
I was the radical, like I'm the black sheep, like by far. Like at one point, you know, you could have thought that we were probably like brothers because how similar we were, and I'll get to that later on. But um, yeah, my father and I tell you. But so let's see. But yeah, back to like my family life. It There was a lot of drama in my family, like people just lying to each other, like backstabbing, like all the cookouts ended up being like who's gonna like say some dumb crap first, like and just start some unnecessary BS, you know?
Yeah.
Or like who's gonna show up, who's not gonna show up, you know, because someone else is here. Like it was a huge deal. So, and this is like something that is obviously getting easier to talk about the more I talk about it. But I was sexually assaulted by my cousin when I was, I want to say 7 or 8 ish. And it was so weird because like I looked up to him so much. Like we hung out all the time and I thought he was like so cool. And then that happened, and then it was like at that time I was like I don't even know what to think. I'm just uncomfortable around him.
Yeah.
And of course I couldn't tell anybody because everybody was still like, even though there was so much drama, we all like were around each other so often. So that was like a thing that really like messed me up in the long run, even though at the time like I just tried to brush it off. Like, and it's crazy that I like tried to brush it off, but it was one of those things like I'm so ashamed of it, like we're gonna take this to the grave.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a weird feeling to have at such a young age. And so many people have that feeling today, you know, and it's so crazy, especially having kids. And it's like I hope, like I obviously hope nothing like that happens ever, but I hope that I can give them like a comfortable enough situation where they feel comfortable to tell me, you know, because that's like a huge thing, and so many kids don't have that. They don't feel comfortable talking about it. Even adults, like they just don't have that safe space. Um, Especially guys. Gonna break it down further. Like women are very much supported in talking about it, and are all here for each other and positive about it. But not many guys are.
You know, for sure. I definitely
and
have that
mental
as a
health in
problem.
general. What's up?
I definitely have that as a problem.
Mental health in general. What's up? Yeah.
I'm just making sure my audio didn't sound weird. No, so my dad was, I mean, I love him to death. He's my number one, like you were talking about your mom. Mm-hmm. But he was like, he raised me to be like a man's man. And it was like, yeah. you don't fucking cry. You don't talk about emotions. And it took me a long time. It was probably mid to later 20s. I'm 28 now, mm-hmm. So really in the past like 3, 4, 5 years is when I truly started to analyze like, oh, like this is a part of my life that I need to adjust and I need to find more comfort in, and I'm still struggling with it today. It's definitely had its impact on relationships I've had and friendships, and just not being able to communicate the way I guess people expect me to communicate.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable that way. I'm comfortable living in the suppression of emotions.
Dude, yeah.
But
I'm right there with
it
you.
affects other people in the way that like they're wanting to get that out of me, and I feel like I'm at this crossroads between, oh, I'm an asshole for not, being constantly open and it's my fault, and then at the same time I'm like, yo, back off, like I'm comfortable living like this, stop forcing me into something that, but
see, it's one of those things where it's like, get spiritual for a minute, like it's pushing you to grow.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
People that are supposed to serve you lessons in life are gonna keep coming until you accept that lesson.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that with that scenario, it kind of like, it doesn't necessarily paint me as a bad guy, but when discussing the situation or when things come up, like neither party in that conversation should be a bad person, should feel like a bad person, but really when that conversation comes up, both people feel that level of, I'm in the wrong, because you got the person that's, reacting to it. Likely that's happened after months of, okay, he doesn't talk about his emotions, like whatever, and then it sort of boils up and then comes at me when I'm like, I didn't even know that you were thinking that way. I'm here suppressing my emotions this entire time, like this is just me living my normal life. And then,
I'm very guilty of it, dude.
Yeah, and then in the background this whole time, the other person is thinking, oh, I want to bring this up, but that's kind of wrong of me. Then they hit a boiling point, and usually it comes out in the form of attack, or at least it can be interpreted as a form of attack. I feel like I do that a lot. I feel attacked, and then, because I'm a very logical person, I'm like 100% logical. But as soon as emotions get involved, and as soon as I feel like I need to go on the defense, all that logic goes out the window, and now I'm just like, you're wrong because you're attacking me, and now I am the bad guy in a way, but also not, and it's just this weird vicious cycle.
So we all collectively feel this way. And dude, like that's a huge point. Like going back to like how we were raised as like little boys, like we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to like go that far back, but now in our points of like wanting to grow, it's a big one. Like that one is huge, and amongst men it is very, very similar, and it's we're comfortable that way, and we don't want to break our comfort zones, and again, like I just said, like we then are matched with these people that are gonna push us.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, like this is gonna get a little. It can be interpreted in some bit of a misogynistic way, but I speak facts. I just like, I want to be completely analytical with what I say about things, and with women, obviously there's the wanting of that over communication of emotion, of like talking about emotions and such. But then when that comes to fruition, when that comes up as a discussion, there's a lot of emotion backed up on their end of frustration that they haven't been able to fill that emotional conversation this whole time. So then they get this emotional charge to how they bring it up. And I've noticed this happens a lot with me in a lot of my conversations when this happens. But it's automatically doomed from the beginning with, once it gets brought up, it's emotionally charged, which puts me in an emotionally charged defensive position. And then it just spirals out from there. So I've been struggling with how to even bring up how to be more communicative and how.
So I'll tell you, and it's something that like I'm trying, and I've like been in trouble with it in every relationship, is bringing things up when they happen.
Yes.
Because I just bury them and just say, oh, that didn't really bother me, but then I'm boiling all day over it, and then 5 of those things build up.
See, I'm in the opposite position of that, where the other person does that to me, and it's like a bring it up after the fact, or like bringing up old shit sort of scenario.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I kind of use as a defense. And just this conversation is, I'm kind of struggling to find my words because I'm actually, making self-discoveries in my own analysis as we're talking about it.
That's what it's supposed to be.
So
dude, I've had so many conversations, I'm like...
I do that too much, though. I do it so often that in the middle of conversations, it's almost like... So I'm forming these thoughts, I'm forming these realizations, and then because I'm forming them as I'm talking... I'm not correctly getting the message across. So either I sound like an idiot, I'm saying something out of pocket, or I just or on the rare occasion I actually get it right. But so going back to the suppressing stuff and not in the moment, I'm always in the moment. Unless I know it truly won't bother me, which now that I think about it, there's probably things I can't think of that I'm doing the same behavior. But usually I'm pretty patient. I have a very, very high level of patience, especially with the experience of relationships I've been in.
Mm-hmm.
But so I never, if I have to bring something up, I usually bring it up in the moment. And then I go on the super defensive when something in the past comes up. And it's like, oh, remember when you did this? That bothered me. Okay, well, why didn't you tell me when it bothered you?
See, and I'll tell you, since I am that person, dude, I hate conflict. And, I would do anything to not, and it's not a conflict, but in my head it is. Because it's, opposing the other person. Right. But it really doesn't need to be. But I still cannot bring myself to say something. It's it's I don't know. It's
it's one of those hard spots to think about because your intent in not bringing it up is good, but then your impact later on when it festers, and it's degrading your emotional and mental health, and B, when it does finally come up, it's gonna be more explosive than you intended than it would have been the first time anyways. Yeah. And also there's the subconscious thinking of how it's degrading your relationship with someone, because you have this. I'm sure you understand. I don't know if the way I think is completely off the wall, but there's there's a subconscious element to your relationship with this person that's kind of festering a little bit. And in reality, if you look at it like a point-based system, it's taken a few of the positive points and it's putting it in a negative point category. That's an analogy I just came up with. I don't know if that landed or not, but it's one of the things I want with this podcast too is the way my mind works. I feel like is so absolutely weird compared to other people. So I want to express my thoughts a little better.
Yeah, dude.
And I feel like...
And I could probably catch them and work with them, too.
Yeah. Because I feel like the way things work in my head is really weird. I get that with, math, too. When I'm thinking about, doing any weird, addition or subtraction, I look at it in, groups. And it's kind of, bundled objects rather than, the traditional way that you're taught math. Mm-hmm. I think there's something spectrum-related there.
Yeah. That's all right. We all got our gifts.
All right, where were we at? So we were talking. Where'd you leave off? Story was.
So, pretty much, going into high school, played football, loved football. I really liked track. I track in junior high was a blast. What
events?
Shot put. I threw discus a little bit. We had a pretty sweet 4x100 relay. The relay was always fun.
Yeah.
Track meets were just fun in general. It would just be me and my track buddies, and we would just go around and see which girls we could pick up from the other schools and meet other people, and there was always tons of schools at track meet. So it's that's where we met everybody from the surrounding like counties and stuff like that.
Did you have pole vaulting?
No. Well, no. We just had high jump. We had like a super low budget school, so
Okay.
like we didn't even have like a real track. We had like cinders, like gravel, like one step up from gravel to like practice on, and like we never hosted any track events. But let's see. I always I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. Like I wanted to go to college because I was a partier. I drank and smoking weed all through high school like it was my job. Um, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was just going to go to get a degree somewhere. And one day I was hanging out with my buddy and a recruiter came by his house, and he was like, "Hey, who's this guy?" And he actually came to talk to my buddy. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm not really interested." And I was like, I'll listen to you." And I ended up setting up a meeting with him, and like I enlisted like a few months later.
Did you have to do the whole like where you they got like the core values listed out and they're like, how would you rank these core values?
Yeah.
I thought I was creative and stuff, and I put some like side by side. I was like, ooh, he's gonna like that move.
Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of one of those things like screw it, this is gonna get me out of small town Illinois. I'm gonna get paid to do it. I might get to do some cool things while I'm over there. So it was like on a total whim. And it's interesting like now that like how my life has like come back around to like how did I ever go to the Marines? So it's because I've always been like a hippie at heart, like just always been a fan of like that whole generation, like always had my hair long, like loved like peace and the smoking weed, like the whole generation, the hair, the music, like
yeah,
you know, I love that generation. Anyway, so off to the Marines I went, and I ended up getting field artillery. I didn't know what field artillery was. I went for combat engineer. I was hoping for the AAVs, which is the amphibious assault vehicles. It's pretty much like a floating beer can in the ocean that I heard sinks a lot.
Good old death trap.
Yeah, so, but I'm not the best swimmer. Well, I can swim, but I'm not like top-notch swimmer, so I didn't get AAVs. And went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. It's a rowdy time there. Let's see. And then my first duty station was Camp Pendleton out in California, which was a stellar time. It's only like 30 minutes from San Diego, like an hour from Los Angeles.
Yeah, I wish I had gotten stationed out there for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
I've never been, not even one field exercise out there.
Oh, man. Dude, and like 29 Palms, the field ops are sweet.
Yeah.
Like, those are like some raw training hours. Like,
yeah, because you can do 24
like 6
hour
weeks long
operations there, right?
Do what?
You can do 24-hour operations?
Yeah. Yeah, so you're displacing at 4 a.m. going down shooting at 5 a.m. like one's business.
You can shoot pretty much like all the missions that are restricted on Camp Lejeune, right?
Do what?
Like all the missions that you can't shoot, like shooting up the Charge 5 or
so those are
huger impact area or way larger impact area.
You have so that that impact zone is huge, and like we'd be going on convoys for like hours just to like a different position
Yeah,
to
see,
shoot.
that's real shit. That's what I
It was
wish I
fun.
got some of my some of the training I could have taken place in.
Yeah. It it was like the roughest but like best training I've ever done
Hell
in the
yeah.
Marine Corps was. Yeah. It's cool. Um but then we got to go back and live 5 minutes from the beach, and so um but yeah, so to back it up, the first day I joined or got to the fleet, my mom told me that she had colon cancer.
Damn.
So it was kind of like a bittersweet day. And it was like what to think at that point, you know. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to like keep my head on track here, like focus on everything that I'm about to like get thrown into, and then like, oh, my mom's got cancer, and cancer means dying. You know, like in my head, because I've never met too many cancer survivors compared to, I mean, terrible. I'm not gonna name stats, but growing up in a small town, like if anybody had cancer, it usually didn't end well. So I just had that mentality. Um, I went on. Well, I ended up getting married. So it was a very like Marine Corps standard like PFC marriage. Um, we met when I was still in.
She wasn't a
The
stripper, was
schoolhouse.
she?
She was not a stripper.
That would have
No.
been the standard PFC marriage.
Yeah, and my Mustang.
And the Mustang, no.
Yeah.
With a 20% APR.
Yeah, yeah. But she was not a stripper. And let's see, we got married within, how long did we know each other? It was less than a year. It was like 8 months, something like that.
Was there any living together before that marriage?
Do what?
Was there any living together before that marriage?
No.
Yeah, that's the biggest part, man.
And yeah, that is very important. That is very important. So pretty much we got married right before my first UDP to Japan. So got married. I left like 2 weeks later. And a UDP is pretty much like a forward deployment to Japan, and you just live on the base. But we ended up going to Thailand and South Korea, which was really cool. I really want to go back to Thailand. And let's see, that deployment came and went really fast, and came back and got thrown right back into another workup. And at this point in life, we just found out we were pregnant with my first kid, my daughter. And as far as I know, well, I actually like went home and they had like a cancer benefit for my mom. And this was one of those things like I was totally burying this. Like I was not trying to think about my mom having cancer at all. Like, and I didn't. And anytime it was brought up to me, I like stonewalled, like didn't talk about it, just nudged it off. I didn't get emotional over it. And then going to my second deployment, my mom's pretty much like, everything's good. And then right before I leave, my aunt calls me and is like, everything's not good. Like, she's not going to make it through this deployment.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, back it up here. So I go home on emergency leave. And then pretty much see her for the last time. And that was really hard.
Yeah.
Because I didn't tell her that I was coming. So it was kind of like, she was at that point like embarrassed that I was seeing her like that.
Yeah.
Because she had basically like told my mom or my sister to not like tell me how bad it was, so I could like focus on my life out here. And like that's what parents do.
Yeah.
Like, and so I go back to Japan, and then like a week into it, my sister calls and was like, "Hey, she's pretty close. We're on hospice. Like, if you'd like to say anything to her, like, now's the time." And that's when I pretty much was like, "Thanks for everything. Like, you've been you've been the homie." Like, and that was terrible. I was sitting in like a janitor's closet, like in the barracks room or in the barracks, like telling my mom goodbye.
Yeah,
Dude,
that's rough.
like that one like locked me up pretty hard, and that was a huge turning point in my life. Because remember, I'm not too close with my dad at this point still. And my marriage was like on the rocks. And I was going on my second deployment as a corporal, as a section chief. So it was a crazy time. And that's when I like was drinking nonstop. Like I started drinking, it was every night. I took a lot of acid to Japan. A lot of acid. And it was pretty much like 6 months of like me just getting fucked up.
How did you get it?
Do what?
How did you get it? The acid.
So it was really easy to get in California. It was literally a guy that we were working with that sold it. And we would buy it by the vials. And
you got it in liquid form?
Do what?
You got it in liquid form?
Yeah. It was about 115 hits per bottle, and we would split the bottle and just, dude. And we'll get into that with my one podcast. Drugs in the military, if you don't think they're going through, boy.
Wait, is a podcast you've already done or one you're planning on doing?
No, that's the one that I'm going to do.
Okay.
So I'm going to basically break open like my experience with the military and kind of like some of the stories that I saw and like stories that like never leave the gates, which is really messed up. And that's where I kind of want to share my story, because so many people like think of the military as this like all praised place. But as I'll get to further, a lot of people are just not taken care of. And it affects everything, even down to, all of these veterans still committing suicide.
Yeah.
It all starts when they go to boot camp, and that mentality is just engraved.
What's kind of wild to think about is the whole reason we started to get close was, I think you randomly asked me on Snapchat if like officers did drugs, and then like that's literally how we like started talking. If you're not like married to the idea of doing that podcast alone, I definitely got some bits that I could contribute. But there's drugs are not just at the enlisted level.
And so whenever I was in California, some dude got busted driving like 5 kilos through the gate.
Jesus.
And that's a lot of cocaine.
Yeah, that's like
and
lots of money worth.
And it's so crazy, because back in the day, like you would see whenever I was like just joining and talking to those like sergeants and staff sergeants, like spice. They used to smoke spice in the barracks, and like all their deployments, like it's everywhere, and that is like people got to cope, and going back to like my situation, mine's just one singular situation, not counting all the other lance corporals and divorced staff sergeants that got baby mamas, that all these situations. You got to show up every day with your sleeves rolled tight, and a clean shave.
Yep.
And a fresh haircut on Monday, and it's like, or else, your career could be tampered with.
Yeah. And like this all goes back to, last episode I was talking about Staff Sergeant Sansonetti for a little bit, and that's a big thing, is he was going through all this stuff. I don't want to air out too much of his laundry, but he found out some really hard information to deal with, and he had alcohol abuse. He had who knows if there was other drugs in his system or if he abused any of that, but he wasn't reaching out to anybody. He was the guy that showed up with a smile on his face, cracked a joke, and was absolutely dead inside. And that's just another like masculinity issue, let alone a Marine masculinity issue.
Yeah.
Like and there's no getting around that. I don't think that's ever going to change. No matter how many people have podcasts, how many people talk about it, it's not going to change, because I mean, even ingrained in our like DNA, you're leading one of like the most hardcore organizations. You're leading a unit of that organization where you're training to kill people.
Yeah. And that's like
if you're trying to expose like that element of your own psyche, it's automatically viewed as a weakness, and you can't show any weaknesses in front of a unit that literally one of the motto things that we chant is fucking kill.
Oh yeah. And going back to like your podcast, like you saying that you gave these speeches and these kids are like, oh, that's cool. Like they haven't quite put that together, but it's again like one of those things, like, dude, and going back to like the change of psyche, like I was that teenager that fully had that thought that I could kill somebody and I was okay with it.
Oh yeah.
For defending this country, whatever that meant at the time. And I look back at it now and I'm like, where would I be now had I gone to like a few campaigns and got what I wanted?
Yeah.
Like, and so grateful that I didn't. And it's just it's like an interesting like thought process, because so many people, once they join and go to boot camp and all that stuff, they will have that mentality until they're in the dirt.
Yep. I definitely had that. At least I don't think I was too, I guess, brainwashed, for lack of a better term, but because I was able to create reasonable chains of logic behind it. Yeah. So thinking from my position, I wanted to be a part of combat. I wanted the same thing. And I think maybe early on it was more of a, like how you were saying, like, yeah, like I wanna take someone's life. And I think it sort of I think I took that and I molded it to something logical. And I kind of prefaced it with, if someone has to be in this position, which there is, like it's our military. America's always at war with someone because there's a grander scheme at play, and you really have to kind of remove all that thought, because at the end of the day, someone our age is going to be in that position.
And that I had a buddy that actually said that to me one day. He's like, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, and it's maybe that can be debated pretty easily, but obviously I'm pretty sure you see it the way I do. But just hearing it out loud, it's an easily debatable thing. Not necessarily someone has to do it, but more of someone's going to do it.
Right.
Now, for me, there was an element of I want to kind of make this sacrificial decision, as in, I know someone my age is going to be in this position, having to make these calls, having to sit with that guilt and have it hold on their heart. And I knew I'm an extremely emotionally and mentally strong person. I can compartmentalize really well, which also is probably part of my downfall in relationships and opening up to people. But I definitely had this rationality of I will be the one. I will be the 25, 26-year-old put in this position, and because I know I can do it. Because someone is going to be in that position no matter what. You can't just say, oh, I'm not going to do this because, X, Y, and Z. And there's so many layers that we could dive into, but obviously you and I were at the bottom of the barrel in the whole grand scheme of the politics, and we can go into that all day. Yeah. But you really have to, especially for us that we serve, like I would not take back serving. I would go through it all over again. But all these things are being revealed about the government and their intentions and how corrupt everything is and why we're in certain positions. Stuff that's been said for pretty much since Vietnam, when television started becoming a thing and journalism really dove into it. A lot of it's been true. A lot of it's been super corrupt. It's the what's the word? Talking about our economy being based on the war machine, the global industrial or the military industrial complex. It's the realest thing ever. You look at all of the lobbyists for these politicians that are working for Lockheed Martin and all these agencies, all these companies that have contracts with governmental agencies. It's obvious. Like there's no getting around it. There's no way that these politicians are not setting up conflicts or getting involved into certain areas of the world that we don't need to be in. And we're just pawns. So I've always hated the argument of hate towards the pawns. Like obviously
dude, that's like, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Like that's like the huge target audience I want to like try to help going on with my life and trying to get into more like the therapy for veterans specifically is letting them realize that they were the pawn and letting them know it was not their fault.
Yeah.
Like,
and our intentions are so like, pure, and maybe
they are.
Maybe some join for they don't know a lot. Oh, look at these benefits. Dude, like obviously you're gonna get a pitch that doesn't say, oh, people are gonna hate you for shit that 90 levels above you are doing.
Bro, these recruiters come into the high schools. They have the posters all over the place. They're looking spiffy. They're showing you how much you make every month. Talking about how we're the best and the baddest and all these huge opportunities to travel and see the world and all this stuff, but all for what? And dude, like America is a war machine, and they prey on 17 and 18-year-olds to do their bidding.
Yep.
And I had a buddy pretty much tell me he went paintballing not long ago, and he was like, dude, I saw this kid, and he was going into the Air Force, like he was all moto and stuff like that, and like trying to talk trash and all this stuff, and he's like, all I could think about was like, that was me. Like, that was me, like with the lanyard and the, Marine Corps shirt, like ready to do anything in order to.
Oh no, that's off. I had the same Marine Corps lanyard on for like a decade.
Yeah. And it's like, you can't sit there and tell that kid you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're about to like sign up for. And it's not so much like, oh, the war part. Like, it's so much more than that. Like, your whole mentality on life is about to change, and you don't even know it.
Yeah, what's crazy is that most of society has this image of what they see in movies and commercials and discussions with people in the military, but like only the highlights, only the oh yeah, I was deployed, this is the combat I saw, or these are the cool things I did, or these are the heavy moments in my life that are directly related to the military. But no one really has this. I mean, I'm sure many people do, but I feel like the majority of people don't have that idea of what, like, when they wake up and they're standing around in a group next to each other. Like, are they bonding? Are they talking shit at each other? When they go to bed, is there truly like, a brotherhood, camaraderie? Is there hazing that
some
goes
of them
on?
Getting picked on? Like,
exactly.
Are they singling somebody out? Is somebody showing up to work every day smelling like booze, but we just throw it under the rug? Is it,
Yeah,
and
so much.
And if you talk, and if you even like talk mental health, you're the weakest person in the whole unit.
Yeah, I think that is shifting though. I think
yeah.
There is, because especially with what I hope my impact was. I had my talks about how I had tried to commit suicide, and obviously that's coming from a first lieutenant at the time, talking to these PFCs, these lance corporals, and sergeants. Hopefully they see that and they take that on. I mean, you never know if that'll actually be the case, but fuck, man, I'm gonna try every time.
Yeah, and I've talked to a handful of still active duty Marines, and they've come up to me talking about like their views on like mental health and how so many more active duty service members need other ways and outlets to get mental health help, and not just it covered up and you get shunned if you talk about it, and there's all these researches going on with like the plant medicine with like psilocybin. There's a lot of military members going and doing the ayahuasca retreats because the booze just is not cutting it anymore, and it never was. And but people in this day and age, now that these these plants are coming back into the mainstream and into medicine, there's actually studies being done like within the VA about the uses of psilocybin for treatments. And if we could just cut back on the alcohol, like it's huge, and it's used as rewards for long field ops. Everybody looks forward to it at the ball or all the celebratory get-togethers. It's huge alcohol. It's ridiculous.
That's one of the biggest things that I think about in terms of just one of the things that's just so mind-blowing about how corrupt government is, and how alcohol and tobacco is legal when they have such ridiculously high amounts of deaths, and shit like weed, which there has never been an overdose on and someone dying in the history of ever, is still, I mean, it's nice that it's making traction, but it's so far behind the curve. Do you know why pot was illegal in the first place?
Illegal?
Yeah, why it got, like, the initial point of it getting banned and such.
I'm sure I do, but it's in there somewhere.
It was all based on paper and hemp products. Like the actual THC of it was never a problem in that area. But I forget who it was, but some guy who had like super rich, had a lot of influence, and he ran a paper mill. Was trying to prevent two things from two of his options. Option one, like converting all of his equipment to deal with hemp in the same way, or two, just prevent anyone else from using it, so they have to rely on his paper. Literally, hemp utilizing it as a recreational drug was not in the idea of banning it at any point. And then, of course, they I guess it's just a lack of access to information really prevented them from the people from knowing like what's asking the question. They're just getting fed this bullshit from a money hungry asshole. And now, like, we're really just now in the past decade or so truly accepting, oh, weed isn't that bad. There's still, you have to, like, tread lightly with some things. Like, I don't know who, if you're watching, I just got my medical marijuana card, which, A, is pretty cool. Only got Nathan's approval. By the way, let me dive into that experience. That was really wild for me, because I've always been... First off, it came up the day I got it. I was actually I had a VA appointment. This was on Friday. I had a VA appointment with my doctor, and I asked him about it, and they were saying because VA is a federal it's based off of federal regulations, and weed is still technically federally illegal. They can't have any part of that process. So I was like, okay, basically you're telling me to go see some doctor, which they are doctors. And actually this guy seemed pretty smart, the guy I went to, but we know the reality of most of these little pop-up areas. The one I went to seemed pretty legit. I just went to the first one that had like 4.5 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
My VA appointment was probably over by like 9 o'clock. So I looked them up real quick, and I was able to schedule an appointment for 10 o'clock. So like I look at it, I was like, oh, I can do an appointment in an hour. Cool. Show up. I don't know how easy it would have been without my medical documents, because I have a ruptured L5S1 disc from the military. So that was kind of an easy way to like, here's all the information that I had all in one email that I had sent myself earlier. So I guess I had a lot of ammunition to get it easily. I don't know how easy it would be if you just walk in like, oh, I got back pain, but I don't really have any information that I can give you based on it.
Yeah.
And then I go in there, I'm talking with the guy, with the doctor who looked like this total hippie. I loved it so much. Like he had like the dark gray hair, not the kind of color that like looks good
not
fashionably.
The like complete dead pigment in the
yeah. So he had like this long hair and a ponytail and this long beard, and it's like this.
Nice.
This guy is meant for this job.
You got Gandalf to give you your medical.
Dude, it was like Gandalf's cousin that never did anything in the physical aspect of things. But dude, my mind was blown. So. I know a shit ton about mushrooms, be it psychedelic, the medicinal, or just the edible,
culinary,
gourmet ones. I thought I knew a good handful about marijuana, and then he starts talking about terpenes and how they're connected to the flower, and names like turbo diesel or anything along that line is actually based on a fuel base. I don't think it's actually fuel based, but just the smell of it is fuel based terpene. And then those terpenes have the best anti-inflammatory properties. And then I'm just getting my mind blown here. I have like 4 different booklets that are 50 pages long. Most of them containing like coupons for, local dispensaries or whatever. But I'm like, wow, I got some studying to do, because now I think you can tell like I dive deep into things when I want to know about them and match things perfectly. So I'm probably gonna really be getting into truly understanding that lately, because firstly I'd
like to learn more as well.
I need to actually find out what combination works best for me, because there's like, you just think about all the variables of your forms of consuming it. Your basic flour, your edibles, your concentrates, your actual just pens, or if you're like infusing it with other foods. Then you gotta think about the different combinations you can have between different sativas, different indicas, different hybrids, and then you're mixing around the form you take each of those in, and exactly like there's so many possibilities. They literally gave me a journal to write down, this specific type with this percentage that has these kind of terpenes in it had this kind of effect on me, and then I go
and that's a good idea because like the science nerd in me here, all the different like terpenes and cannabinoids react different with our receptors. So you may have a cannabinoid that reacts different to you versus I have one.
Yeah.
And I think that's super interesting.
No, I really want to dive into a lot more of the understanding of it. And then you take all those different elements, all those different possibilities, and then you introduce a different type of drug with it. If you think about combining that with mushrooms and trying to dive into your psyche that way, or you probably wouldn't do any help in the physical pain aspect of things, but when you're diving into the spiritual elements, the different combinations you could.
It opens up different doorways.
Yeah, with how you can truly capture what you're really seeking in terms of your psyche and your mental health growth and getting over things. I really wish I could spend more time dedicating to that. I would love, it's just not in my future right now, but I would love to go down the psychology route and go into the world of utilizing cannabis and mushrooms as a way of officially healing. I know I want to like move in with you and follow the path.
Vicariously.
Oh no, yeah.
I'll keep you up to date.
I have to stay true to my desire of all this digital world that I'm going to.
You're on a path right now.
By the way, I just got monetized on YouTube. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, there's different levels. I hit the first level where I can get like super thanks and like paid subscribers. I gotta look into it a little more, but it's not the ad revenue one. It's where people they voluntarily give you money. So it's not. I'm not gonna probably see like any money from it, but it will.
That's cool though.
It's a step in the right direction, and it's kind of.
That's cool.
I don't feel too accomplished about it because the one video I went viral on that got me the 4,000 subscribers wasn't even my video. I just found it. I just reposted a funny video, and
top traction.
It's got over 3.5 million views right now.
Wow.
But I'm just gonna
keep making stuff. I mean, obviously, we're gonna keep talking.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna do a gaming stream right after this too, because I need to do one of those. Running through Fallout. I need to beat that so I can get on to Fallout 3, which is so much better than these ones.
I want to start working on I'm gonna start taking my notes of my military podcast. Like a lot of people are like waiting on it.
Oh yeah.
And but it's just the like sitting down and writing the notes, and like I need to get better at like, I guess this is the part of like content creating that like people don't really think about, is like the behind the scenes of like, because I don't have like a YouTube channel set up or anything. I might have an account, but like getting things on the screen to YouTube, and I'm totally behind the curve on electronics and technology, and I feel like if I get up to speed, like I feel like I could catch an audience. I can definitely help you with everything. Hell, you're looking at my whole screen right now, right? Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I could legit show you my entire like actual process and explain things.
Yeah,
Um,
and I want to get a computer here. I'm starting to save for like a little laptop, but um, I'm just out of the game on technologies. That's about all there is to say.
yeah, I mean, I could do it right now. I don't know if it'll be interesting for anybody, but I could show you my whole setup right now if you want.
Well, I
What I
gotta
could do
go
is,
because we're at our cutoff time.
oh man, God, that
Yeah,
time does fly, man.
yeah, I know. I
Goodness
know.
gracious. All right,
But
all right. So, do you have anything else you want to say in this?
no, I'm just yeah. It was a quick recap, and of course I don't mind that I didn't get it all out, but
Yeah. Maybe
um,
next time we could
we
start
can
with towards the end of you being in the military because I think you it's
yeah,
kind of
and
what
kind of like
the spot you were at.
my progression to
Yeah, and then
the
and then
shift
moving
change.
into what you're doing now and everything.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be cool.
All right. Yeah, and then yeah, just let me know when you want to do that. Thanks for sitting down
Yeah,
with me, even though I struggled so hard in the beginning there.
yeah,
I'm pretty
that's
sure
all right.
my audio sounds absolutely terrible too because I think I'm screaming into the mic, but I wasn't.
That's all
I
right.
gotta tweak
People
some
listen or
stuff.
not listen.
Yeah.
It's all right. The content's out there.
Yeah.
So
All right.
it's two
Well,
dudes chatting.
it was good talking to you again. Hopefully next time it's a lot more smooth and we can get a little bit more time out of it.
Yeah, man. You
All
have a good
right.
week, brother.
Take it easy. You too.